He promised them a new stock of men, unlike the former ones, a race of miraculous origin. Ages ago I listened to Crow 777 and he had Wayne McCroy on, who's really good. And they were saying Ovid, see Ovid 19. So we've put all our books away because we had to decorate somewhere. And the only one that keeps falling out is Metamorphoses by Ovid. And I'm beginning to take a bit of a hint because it's been on my mind, this see Ovid thing that they were talking about. Also, while thinking about it, the word metamorphoses has been on my mind as well. So I've been looking, because I'm not very clever, so I've got to look this up. So meta means after or beyond or transcending in Greek, and sort of post in Latin, like postmodern. Morphosis, don't forget Morpheus, it sounds like that, doesn't it, from The Matrix anyway. Morphosis, development in an organism or its parts characterised by structural change. So metamorphosis, after there's been a development in an organism or its parts characterised by structural change. It's basically what metamorphosis means. And so then you look up the word meta. You look up the word, meta. So you've got something called, which I've never heard of, metagaming. That's a game that transcends or operates outside of the prescribed rules of the game. So for humanity, I would say the prescribed rules of our game is nature. So then you go on to, and then it says goes beyond the said limits of the game. So the limits of the game of humanity is nature. So then they create in the metaverse, a digital reality. And if we're going back to the word meta in Latin, kind of means post. We get post-human, don't we? So, yeah, all of this is relevant. So I don't know whose book this even is. But Ovid, 43 BC to AD 17. So on the back it says, in his Metamorphoses, Ovid draws on Greek mythology, Latin folklore and legend from even further afield to create a series of narrative poems ingeniously linked by the common theme of transformation. A chaotic universe is subdued into harmonious order. Animals turn to stone, men and women become trees, stones and stars. Ovid is a master of variation. His understanding of human nature knows no bounds. Style is elegantly tailored to fit the subject, and the gentle vein of humour which runs through his work is exploited with subtlety, sympathy and delightful self-irony. Okay, so I thought I'll look up, because it's all different books. I think there's 13. So I was looking for Ovid book 19, and it doesn't exist in this book. So I thought, right, we'll start with 1 and we'll start with 9. So book 1 is all about, wait for it, order out of chaos. Masons like a bit of order out of chaos, don't they? Unfortunately, they make the chaos in order that they can bring in their own order. The Hegelian dialectic, or problem, reaction, solution, as David Icke calls it. So I started reading book 1, and I was going to read it all to you, but you might get a bit bored because it's a bit like the creation. It's a bit like Genesis, the beginning of it in the Bible, and it's all about there was no sun, there was no moon, there was no anything, there was just nature presented the same aspect the world over, that to which men have given the name chaos, which was lifeless matter whose ill-assorted elements were indiscriminately heaped together in one place. So it's basically what you would get in Genesis, but in here he says it was resolved by God. We don't know which it says here. We don't know which one of the gods, but it was sorted out by God. And then so I thought, I'm not going to read all that because it's a bit. You can just pick your Bible up to look at basically what he's writing. But then it's sort of like got a bit more interesting. So he's talking about how some god, don't know which one, made order out of the nothingness, out of the chaos. And then he talks about one side of the world is going to be hot, one side is going to be cold, blah blah blah. And then he met the waters and the wild beasts. So it's all very much like Genesis. But then he starts talking about, and then there's a bit here, is it? Fashioned it into the image of the all-governing gods. So with an S on the end. But then he started talking about the golden, the bronze, the silver ages, and they're talking about the yugas. I know I keep banging on about this, but this is 100% what they're talking about. They are talking about the yugas because it goes on like, in the beginning was the golden age, when men of their own accord, without threat of punishment, without laws, maintained good faith and did what was right. There were no penalties to be afraid of, no bronze tablets were erected, carrying threats of legal action, no crowd of wrongdoers, anxious for mercy, trembled before the face of their judge. Indeed, there were no judges. Men lived securely without them. Never yet had any pine tree cut down from its home on the mountains been launched on ocean's waves to visit foreign lands. Men knew only their own shores. Their cities were not yet surrounded by sheer moats. They had no straight brass trumpets, no coiling brass horns, no helmets and no swords. The peoples of the world, untroubled by any fears, enjoyed a leisurely and peaceful existence, and had no use for soldiers. The earth itself, without compulsion, untouched by the hoe, unfurrowed by any share, produced all things spontaneously, and men were content with foods that grew without cultivation. They gathered arbute berries and mountain strawberries, wild cherries and blackberries. They clung to thorny bramble bushes, or acorns fallen from Jupiter's spreading oak. It was a season of everlasting spring, when peaceful zephyrs with their warm breath caressed the flowers that sprang up without having been planted. In time the earth, though untilled, produced corn too, and fields that never lay fallow, whitened with heavy ears of grain. Then there flowed rivers of milk and rivers of nectar, and golden honey dripped from the green holm oak. When Saturn was consigned to the darkness of Tartarus, and the world passed under the rule of Jove, the age of silver replaced that of gold, inferior to it, but superior to the age of tawny bronze. Jupiter shortened the springtime which had prevailed of old, and instituted a cycle of 4 seasons in the year, winter, summer, changeable autumn, and a brief spring. Then for the first time the air became parched and arid, and glowed with white heat. Then hanging icicles formed under the chilling blasts of the wind. It was in those days that men first sought covered dwelling places. They made their homes in caves and thick shrubberies, or bound branches together with bark. Then corn, the gift of Ceres, first began to be sown in long furrows, and straining bullocks groaned beneath the yoke. After that the third age, the age of bronze, when men were of a fiercer character, more ready to turn to cruel warfare, but still free from any taint of wickedness. Last of all arose the age of hard iron. Immediately in this period, which took its name from a baser ore, all manner of crime broke out. Modesty, truth, and loyalty fled. Treachery and trickery took their place. Deceit and violence and criminal greed. Now sailors spread their canvas to the winds, though they had yet but little knowledge of these. And trees which had once clothed the high mountains were fashioned into ships and tossed upon the ocean waves, far removed from their own element. The land, which had previously been common to all, like sunlight and the breezes, was now divided up far and wide by boundaries, set by cautious surveyors. Nor was it only corn and their due nourishment that men demanded of the rich earth. They explored its very bowels and dug out the wealth which it had hidden away, close to the Stygian shades, and this wealth was a further incitement to wickedness. By this time iron had been discovered, to the hurt of mankind, and gold more hurtful still than iron. War made its appearance, using both these metals in its conflict, and shaking clashing weapons in blood-stained hands. Men lived on what they could plunder. Friend was not safe from friend, nor father-in-law from son-in-law. And even between brothers affection was rare. Husbands waited eagerly for the death of their wives, and wives for that of their husbands. Ruthless stepmothers mixed brews of deadly aconite, and sons pried into their fathers' horoscopes, impatient for them to die. All proper affection lay vanquished, and last of the immortals, the maiden Justice, left the blood-soaked earth. The heights of heaven were no safer than the earth, for the giants, so runs the story, assailed the kingdom of the gods, and, piling mountains together, built them up to the stars above. Then the Almighty Father hurled his thunderbolt, smashed through Olympus, and flung down Pelion from where it had been piled on top of Ossa. The terrible bodies of the giants lay crushed beneath their own massive structures, and the earth was drenched and soaked with torrents of blood from her sons. Then, they say, she breathed life into this warm blood, and, so that her offspring might not be completely forgotten, changed it into the shape of men. But the men thus born, no less than the giants, were contemptuous of the gods, violent and cruel, with a lust to kill. It was obvious that they were the children of blood. When the father of the gods, the son of Saturn, looked down from his high citadel and saw what was going on, he groaned aloud. He recalled the horror banquet of Lycaon, which had not yet become common knowledge, so recent was the deed, and his heart swelled with dreadful wrath worthy of Jupiter. He called together his council, and they did not delay when they heard his summons. There is a track across the heavens, plain to see in the clear sky. It is called the Milky Way, and it's famous for its brightness. It is by this road that the gods come to the place of the mighty Thunderer and to his royal home. On the right hand and on the left stand the houses of distinguished gods, filled with crowds that throng their open doors. The ordinary inhabitants of heaven live elsewhere, in different places. Here the powerful and noble divinities have made their homes. This is the spot which, were I allowed to speak boldly, I would not hesitate to call the Palatine district of high heaven. So the gods took their seats in the marble and council chamber, and their lord sat, throned above them, leaning on his ivory sceptre. 3 times, 4 times he shook those awe-inspiring locks, and with them moved the earth, the sea, the stars. Then he opened his lips and spoke these indignant words. Never was I more anxious concerning the sovereignty of the universe. No, not even at the time when each of the snaky-footed giants was preparing to throw his 100 arms around the sky and take it captive. For then the attack was made by one small group of enemies, and, although they were fierce ones, still the trouble originated from one source. Now the entire human race must be destroyed, throughout all the lands which Nereus surrounds with his roaring waters. I swear by the rivers of the underworld that flow through the Stygian grove beneath the earth, all other remedies have already been tried. This cancer is incurable and must be cut out by the knife, in case the healthy part become infected. We have the demigods to care for, the spirits of the countryside, nymphs and fauns, satyrs and sylvani, who roam the hills. Since we have not as yet considered them worthy of the honour of a place in heaven, let us at least ensure that they can live on the earth which we have given them. For you For can you believe, you gods, that they will go unmolested when Lycaon, a man notorious for his savagery, has laid plots against me, the lord and master of the thunderbolt, I, and your king and master too? All the gods muttered uneasily and eagerly demanded the punishment of the man who had dared to do such a deed. Their dismay was such as was felt by the human race when a wicked band of fanatics tried to extinguish the Roman name by shedding Caesar's blood. All men were seized by panic fear of instant destruction, and the whole world shuddered, just as the loyal devotion of your subject pleases you, Augustus, so did you of the gods please Jupiter. He checked their murmurs with a word, and as he raised his hand, all fell silent. When the uproar had subsided, hushed by the authority of the King of Heaven, Jupiter broke the silence with these words: As far as he is concerned, he has paid the penalty. Have no fear on this score, but I shall tell you what his crime was and what his punishment. Scandalous rumours concerning the state of the times had reached my ears. Hoping to find them false, I descended from the heights of Olympus and walked the earth, a god in human form. It would take long to tell what wickedness I found on every side. Even the scandalous rumours were less than the truth. I had crossed over the ridge of Manelius, a place bristling with the lairs of wild beasts, over Cyllene, and through the pine woods of chill Lycius. From there, when the last shades of twilight were heralding the night, I entered the inhospitable home of the Arcadian tyrant. I revealed myself as a god, and the people began to do me homage. Lycaon, however, first laughed at their pious prayers, and then exclaimed, I shall find out by an infallible test whether he be god or mortal. There will be no doubt about the truth. His plan was to make me unawares as I lay sound asleep at night and kill me. This was a test of truth on which he was resolved. Not content with that, he took a hostage sent him by the Milesian people, slit the man's throat with a sharp blade, and cut his limbs still warm with life, boiling some and roasting others over the fire. Then he set this banquet on the table. No sooner had he done so than I, with my avenging flames, brought the house crashing down upon its household gods, gods worthy of such a master. Lycaon fled, terrified, until he reached the safety of the silent countryside. Then he uttered howling noises, and his attempts to speak were all in vain. His clothes changed into bristling hairs, his arms to legs, and he became a wolf. His own savage nature showed in his rabid jaws, and he now directed against the flocks his innate lust for killing. He had a mania, even yet, for shedding blood, but though he was a wolf, he retained some traces of his original shape. The greyness of his hair was the same, his face showed the same violence, his eyes gleamed as before, and he presented the same picture of ferocity. One house has fallen, but far more than one have deserved to perish. To the ends of the earth the dread fury holds sway. You would think men had sworn allegiance to crime. They shall all be punished forthwith as they deserve. Such is my resolve. Some of the gods shouted their approval of Jove's words and sought to increase his indignation. Others played the part of silent supporters. Yet all were grieved at the thought of the destruction of the human race and wondered what the earth would be like in future when it had been cleared of mortal inhabitants. They inquired who would bring offerings of incense to their altars, whether Jove meant to abandon the world to the plundering of wild beasts. In answer to their questions, the king of the gods assured them that they need not be anxious, for he himself would attend to everything. He promised them a new stock of men, unlike the former ones, a race of miraculous origin. Wow. Oh my God. Now he was on the point of launching his thunderous bolts against every part of the earth, when he felt a sudden dread lest he should set light to the pure upper air by so many fiery bolts, and send the whole vault of heaven up in flames. He remembered too, one of fate's decrees, that a time would come when the sea and earth and the dome of the sky would blaze up, and the massive structure of the universe collapse in ruins. So he laid aside the weapons forged by the hands of the Cyclops and resolved on a different punishment, namely to send rain pouring down from every quarter of the sky, and so destroy mankind beneath the waters. He wasted no time, but imprisoned the north wind in Aeolus caves, together with all the gusts which dispel the gathering clouds, and he let loose the south wind. On dripping wings the south wind flew, his terrible features shrouded it in pitchy darkness. His beard was heavy with rain, water streamed from his hoary locks. Mists wreathed his brow, his robes and feathers dripped with moisture. When he crushed the hanging clouds in his broad hand, there was a crash. Thereafter sheets of rain poured down from heaven. Juno's messenger, Iris, clad in rainbow hues, drew up water and supplied nourishment to the clouds. The corn was laid low, and the crops the farmer had prayed for now lay flattened and sadly mourned. The long year's toil was wasted and gone for nothing. Well, there was quite a lot in that to analyse, wasn't there? But I kept on going for a while and I stopped because I think we just went past the most relevant bits. So then I went and had a look at 9, so book 9 in Metamorphoses, and there was an awful lot of like fighting, and somebody wasn't very strong and they were trying to fight somebody who was very strong, and this, that and the other, and that went on a bit. And then there's just one sentence that jumped out at me for obvious reasons. It just said, thanks to whose strength I brought home the Amazon sword belt of wrought gold and apples, which the unsleeping dragon guarded closely. And Amazon, apple and dragon in one sentence jumped out at me. Probably got nothing to do with anything. But, so then I had another little look. And just a little bit further down from that, it said, but now a new plague is upon me, which no amount of courage can withstand, no weapons of war overcome. Consuming fire steals into the depths of my lungs, feeding on all my limbs, and that while my enemy, King Uruz, is strong and well. And there are men who can believe in gods.
You gotta be doing. Every go and do it so I'm a savage. Classic, bougie, classic.
So he's got the plague, and Lycus, who gave me this fatal gift? Are you responsible for my death? And then I just carried on reading, and I'm a lazy reader, so I jumped around a bit, and then I found this bit, which is interesting. This one goes on a bit, but it's quite interesting. See if you think this has got anything to do with anything. This was quite a long one, mind. This is in 9. So we've had C Ovid 1. We had a bit in there, and now we've got C Ovid 9. So the report of this new miracle might well have filled the 100 cities of Crete with talk, had not the island recently experienced a miracle nearer home, in the transformation of Iphis. That's Iphis. Ipis? I don't know. On the borders of the territory of Knossos. I'm not very good at reading this. In the land of Phaestus. For God's sake. There lived a man, Lygdus by name, of humble family and undistinguished but free-born. His wealth was on par with his rank, but his life and his loyalty were beyond reproach. His wife Talitha was about to have a child, and when it was almost time for the baby to be born, he advised her as follows. I am praying for two things, that you should be delivered with the least possible pain, and that you may have a boy. A girl is far more of a burden, and fortune has not given me the means to support one. So though I pray it may not happen, if a girl is born, she must be put to death. It is not that I want to order this. I know what is due to family affection and pray to be forgiven." As he spoke, both he and his wife burst into floods of tears. Though he had given these instructions, he wept no less bitterly than she to whom they had been given. None the less it was in vain that his wife begged and prayed Ligdas not to narrow down her hopes so. Her husband had made up his mind. Now when Thalusa could scarcely carry the full-grown burden which weighed her down her womb, Inachus' daughter Io appeared to her in her dreams in the middle of the night, and stood or seemed to stand before her, accompanied by a retinue of divinities. Crescent horns adorned the goddess's brow, which was wreathed with yellow corn ears, wrought from shining gold, and she was decked in royal splendour. With her was the dog Anubis, holy Bubatis Apis with his dappled skin, and the god who never speaks but, finger to lips, advises silence. The sacred rattles were there to see, and Osiris, for whom Io is never finished searching, as well as the foreign serpent, full of drowsy poisons. Then the goddess spoke to Talitha as if she had been awakened from sleep, and were really seeing all of this. "Talitha, you who are one of my own company, forget your bitter anxiety, and deceive your husband in regards to his command. Do not hesitate to rear your child when Lucina has delivered you, whatever it may be. I am a helpful goddess, and bring my aid to those who ask it in their prayers. You will not complain that you have worshipped a deity who shows no gratitude." When she had given this advice, Io left the room. The Cretan Talitha rose joyfully from her bed, and stretching her innocent hands to the stars, humbly prayed that her dreams might come true. As her pains increased and the burden that she carried forced itself of its own accord into life, a female child was born. Without its father's knowledge, the mother pretended it was a boy and ordered it to be reared. Her word was not doubted, and no one but the nurse knew of her deception. The child's father made his vows good, and called the baby Iphis, Iphis, after its grandfather. The mother was pleased with this name because it was used for both boys and girls, and in this respect she was not deceiving anyone. From that time on, the deceit she had practised was kept hidden by various pretences, well justified in the sight of heaven. The child was dressed as a boy, and its features, whether they were supposed to be those of a boy or girl, would have been accounted handsome in either. Now when Iphis reached the age of 13, her father arranged a marriage between her and Ianthe, the fair-haired daughter of the Cretan Telestes. Of all the women of Phaestus, the most richly endowed with beauty, she and Iphis were alike in age, equally good-looking, and had received the first elements of their education from the same masters. As a result, love had touched their innocent hearts and wounded both alike, but their beliefs about what lay in store for them were very different. Ianthe was looking forward to marriage, longing for the time when the wedding that had been arranged would take place, for she believed that she was one whom she thought to be a man would then be her husband. Iphis loved a girl whom she despaired of ever being able to enjoy, and this very frustration increased her ardour. A girl herself, she was in love with, one of her own kind, and could scarcely keep back her tears as she said, "What is to be the end of this for me, caught as I am in the snare of a strange and unnatural kind of love, which none has known before? If the gods wished to spare my life, they should have spared it. If not, if they wished to destroy me, They might at least have visited me with some ordinary misfortune, of the sort to which mankind is prone. Cows do not burn with love for cows, nor mares for mares. It is the ram which excites the ewe, the hind follows the stag. Birds, too, mate in the same way, and never among all the animals does one female fall in love with another. How I wish that I had never been born. That no monstrosity might be lacking in Crete, the daughter of the sun fell in love with the bull. But at least she was a woman, he a male. If the truth be told, my love is more crazy than hers, for she at least pursued a desire that offered some hope of fulfilment. By her tricks, and with the help of an image of a cow, she induced the bull to mount her, and the creature she deceived was a male lover. But through all the world's talent were concentrated here. Though Daedalus himself were to fly back on his waxen wings, what could he do? Could all his magic arts change me from girl to boy? Could he change you, Ianthe? No. Pull yourself together, Iphis. Be firm, and shake off this foolish, useless emotion. Consider what you were born, unless you are deceiving yourself, as well as everyone else. Seek what is permitted to you, and fasten your affections on what a woman should love. It is hope which conceives and nourishes desire, and your case denies you hope. No guardian, no precautions on the part of an anxious husband, no stern father keeps you from the embraces which you long to enjoy. The one you love does not refuse her favours when you ask. Still she cannot be yours, nor can you be happy, whatever happens, though gods and men should strive for you. Even now, none of my prayers go unanswered. The gods are kind and have given me all they could. My father, my sweetheart herself, and her father too, all wish the same as I. But nature is unwilling. She alone stands in my way, but she is more powerful than all the rest. See, the time for which I prayed has come. My wedding day is at hand, and now Ianthe will be mine. Yet she will not be. I shall thirst in the midst of the waters. Why do you, Juno, matron of honour, or you, Hymen, come to this ceremony at which there is no bridegroom, where two brides are being wed? After that, Iphis fell silent. Ianthe's love was as passionate as the others, and she prayed that Hymen should come quickly. But Telethusa, fearing that Ianthe prayed for, kept postponing the occasion, now inventing an illness to cause delay, and constantly putting forward bad omens or dreams as an excuse for waiting. At last there came a time when she had used up all the pretexts she could find, and the delayed marriage ceremony was at hand. Only one day remained. Telethusa tore the ribbons from her daughter's head and from her own. With hair all dishevelled, she clasped the altar and cried, O Isis, you who dwell in Paratonium and in the lands of Merotis, in Pharos and by the Nile, with its 7 horns, bring me your aid and heal my distress. Once upon a time, goddess, I beheld you, and these your ornaments, and recognise them all. Your ratine and the torches and the noise of your rattles, I listened to your behests and stored them in my memory. The fact that my daughter lives and that I am not punished for it is due to your counsel and your bounty. Pity us both and grant me your help. Her tears flowed as she finished speaking. The goddess seemed to make her altars move. She did indeed move them, and the doors of the temple trembled. Her horns shone like those of the moon, and the piercing rattle shrilled. Not entirely reassured, but gladdened by the good omen, the mother left the temple. Iphis accompanied her as she walked along, and moved with a longer stride than usual. Her face lost its fair complexion, her hair looked shorter, plain and simple in style. Her features sharpened and her strength increased. She showed more energy than a woman has, for she who had lately been a woman had become a man. Carry your gifts to the temple, happy pair, and rejoice. Confident and afraid, they bore their gifts to the temples and set up an inscription as well, which consisted of a short verse. The tributes Iphis promised as a maid, by Iphis now a man, are duly paid. The rays of the next day's dawn had revealed the wide world, when Venus, Juno, and Haman too assembled for the wedding ceremony, and the boy Iphis gained his own Ianth. No, I'm not very clever. I would suggest you go and get the book and look at it yourself. But I don't know. On a whim, I just decided to look at this. Well, it wasn't a whim. It just kept jumping out at me and landed on me, and God knows what else. It's like the only book in the whole house that isn't hiding in a box. And so I remembered vaguely this thing that I heard on Crow 777. They understand. Go and have a look at Crow 777. I think either a year or 2 years ago, when they talk about this. None of it stuck in my head because it's all very clever. But I think we pulled a few things out, didn't we, looking at book 1 and book 9. There's definitely a few agenda-y things there. We're going to kill the humans. We're going to get a rainbow to help us. And we are going to make a girl a boy. So there's a few agenda-y things. Now, if I'd have been less lazy and read it properly and looked into the different, obviously Anubis rang a bell. You know, there's all these different things that ring bells, isn't there? Yeah, if I was a lot cleverer than I am now, I would be able to pull out a lot more stuff. But, you know, why don't you do that? I don't know, that's a bit of my day off, filled up. I'm going to go back to see if I can do some painting now. Or no, maybe I'll put some pictures in this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Something to think about, isn't it?
Two very brave people here, and actually you just, as you've said yourself, you want to help others.
Yeah, I want to help others express how they feel in life.
Yeah, and do you think it will make a difference?
Yeah, I think it will help people understand what transgender's all about and have fun, because you only live once and you're only young once.
Yeah.
And so you don't look back. You just look forward to a new you.
Yeah, to future.
I think you're amazing. I think you both are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And